Hello aspirants, I welcome you all to daily newspaper analysis of Shankar IAS Academy. Today's date is 9th of January 2025. Today we have 4 different articles to be discussed. In the first article, we'll be discussing about human metapneumovirus. In the second article, we'll be discussing about the Indus Valley civilization, that is the IVC. And in the third article, we'll be discussing about UAPA. And in the fourth article, we'll be discussing about CBI from the prelims perspective. So without any delay, let us get into the news article discussion. Now look at this article about HMPV virus. HMPV can be expanded as human metapneumovirus. Currently, this particular virus is causing a lot of concern, and that is why World Health Organization or the WHO has released a notice that HMPV is not a very big deal. It is not causing any kind of emergency that happened during the COVID-19 pandemic period, and it has said that it is already being in touch with the Chinese health authorities. So this is what the article is talking about. So from prelims perspective, knowing about HMPV is very, very important. So let's start with the basics of what is this human metapneumovirus. See, it is actually a respiratory virus that affects the respiratory tract of humans. There is a myth that it affects only the babies. As I said, it is just a myth. It affects any person, and the transmission actually happens through two important routes. Firstly, the respiratory droplets, and when this respiratory droplets get contaminated in a particular place. So these two are the transmission ways of this HMPV virus, and the incubation period is like 3 to 6 days from the exposure to this particular virus. Now talking about the symptoms, it has the symptoms similar to a flu or a common cold. So you will be getting fever, headache, but in some rare cases it can turn into bronchitis or pneumonia. So when it turns into such cases, it is actually fatal. Now talking about the prevention, hygiene is the only way to prevent this particular thing, because there is no particular treatment for this virus, or we can tell that there is no antiviral treatment for this HMPV virus. Now here comes the question, how different it is from COVID-19. See, the very basic difference between the two viruses is that the type or the family of virus that causes it. For example, the HMPV virus, it is caused by paramyxovirus, which is very closely related to this RSV, that is the respiratory syncytial virus. But when we talk about the COVID-19, it is caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus, and it caused a very big and it actually caused a global pandemic, and for that a lot of public intervention has been taken. For example, even testing, tracking, and lockdowns were made, and even mass vaccination and antiviral drugs were given to the public. So except this basic difference, both COVID-19 and HMPV have the similar kind of symptoms, and both gets transmitted through the respiratory droplets, causing pneumonia in serious cases. Now talking about the international cooperation, say for the HMPV, we have WHO, that is the World Health Organization's surveillance. We can tell that there is a very less global urgency. And when it comes to COVID-19, we had unprecedented international cooperation when it comes to any kind of aid, and all the kind of coordination with respect to data sharing and the technical support is provided by World Health Organization, and even the vaccine development and distribution has been initiated. This showcases the power of global cooperation. And finally, there are collaboration between all the countries, organization, and even the private sector to overcome this particular disease. So now let's quickly go through this COVID-19 vaccines that are available in the market. So the first thing is the mRNA vaccine, in which the mRNA will be introduced into our body. The two important mRNA vaccines are this Pfizer BioNTech and the Moderna vaccines. And the second important vaccine is this viral vector vaccine. It is from Oxford AstraZeneca, and the second vaccine is from the Johnson & Johnson. And the third important vaccine is this protein subunit produced by Novavax, and we have an inactivated virus which gets activated once entered into our body. It was produced by Sinovac, Coronavac, and Sinopharm. And there are other regional vaccines, for example, Covaxin and Sputnik V for COVID-19 treatment. But when we talk about this HMPV vaccine, we actually don't have any specific antiviral drug, as I said earlier, but there are researches undergoing for producing all the viral vector vaccine, protein subunit vaccine, and the live attenuated vaccines. And another point that you have to remember about this HMPV virus is that we can provide only the support based on the symptoms that actually appear. So prevention is the very important when it comes to HMPV virus. Now we have a preliminary question for you. Let me read out the question. Which of the following viruses prompted the development of vaccines and large-scale public health intervention, including international cooperation through initiatives like COVAX? So the correct answer here is COVID-19. So with these learned points about HMPV and COVID-19, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Now look at this article from the Hindu newspaper. This text and context article asks a very interesting question. Why is deciphering the Indus Script very important? So let us identify that in this news article discussion. Before that, let us revise the basics about Indus Valley civilization. See, the Indus Valley civilization dates back to 2600 to 1900 BCE, and its geographical extent actually covers three important countries. One is India, then the Pakistan, and the Afghanistan. Actually, the identification or discovery of this particular site is very interesting. When the British government was excavating the region for the construction of a new railway track in the present day Pakistan or the past Punjab, they discovered a lot of burnt bricks buried underneath, and this led to the discovery of this particular ancient site, the Indus Valley civilization or the IVC. So the very important feature about this particular IVC is that it is a urban settlement which had a planned city, which had a drainage system, which had a grid layout. They had even granaries to store all the food grains, and they even had trade links with Mesopotamia. And some of the very important sites include this Harappa, which is in Pakistan, Mohenjo-daro, which is also in Pakistan, then the Dholavira, Rakhigarhi, and Lothal. All the three are in India. So these locations are very, very important. Every year, preliminary examination, there might be a map-based question or any kind of question from this IVC. Now moving on, let us see about the economy and the artifacts. See, as I said earlier, the economy is actually a urban economy, and they even had a trade link with the Central Asia. They had standard weights and measures, and they even had seals to actually secure their goods. So if this seal is particularly broken, it means that the product has been tampered. Now talking about the artifacts they used, the first important thing is the seal. The Pasupati seal is very important, and then a lot of pottery, and they used beads to make ornamental jewels as well as dresses, and they used a lot of tools for agriculture, and they used a lot of accessories that are made up of statite, copper, and even terracotta. Now coming to the main theme of today's news article discussion, that is the Indus Script. See, there are nearly 400 to 600 symbols that have been used, and that is why it is actually a logographic, meaning a lot of symbols has been used as a language. And these symbols, they include a lot of animals, plants, and even the geometric shapes. And the most important feature is that the script they have been written, it is actually bidirectional, meaning they have written both from right to left and from left to right. So we usually write from right, in the sense we write, okay, right from left to right, but they actually have written both in both the directions, from right to left and left to right. This is a very important feature. And when we talk about the characteristics, it had very short inscriptions, and they used single text, and there is no any kind of bilingual text. And actually there is a hypothesis that this script actually is a Proto-Dravidian language. So here comes the question, what is the importance of this deciphering? See, the first importance is that we can get a lot of historical insights about how the social life of the people were there, how they were organized in their political setup, how they had their educational systems and all. And the second important thing is their cultural connection within themselves as well as within the world. And thirdly, deciphering this particular script will help us to identify the link between how the South Asian languages actually evolved. So these are the three important reasons for deciphering this particular IVC script. Talking about the recent development, our Tamil Nadu government has actually announced for a 5 million prize for decipherment, especially on the 100th anniversary of the IVC discovery. And we have ASI, that is the Archaeological Survey of India's studies. They have actually analyzed the connection between Tamil Brahmi script and this Indus script. So based on that, a lot of similar motifs has been identified, and even the South Indian artifacts shows that there has been a cultural interaction between the two society, and they have a shared heritage. However, there are certain challenges in deciphering the script. For example, there is a limited inscription to identify or decipher the script. Secondly, there is absence of any bilingual text so that we could compare both the text. And finally, we have a very big challenge, which is like unknown grammar and syntax. So we don't know what is the actual grammar of that particular script, which requires a lot of research and comparison with other languages as well. So these three are the very important challenges when it comes to deciphering. So far we saw about the Indus Valley civilization, then we saw what are all the characteristics of this Indus Valley civilization, then we saw about why deciphering this particular IVC script is very important and what are all the challenges to it. So with these learned points, now we shall try to solve a preliminary question. What was the key feature of Indus Valley cities? Here actually four different options are given, and here the correct answer for the question is option B, grid-based city planning and drainage system. So with these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Now look at this news article. Even though the case given in the news article is not very relevant to our examination, knowing about CBI and ED is very important. So let us revise about them in this news article discussion. So let's start with CBI, or the Central Bureau of Investigation. See, it is India's premier investigation agency. It was established in 1941 as a special police establishment. Later, it was renamed as CBI in 1963. So its headquarters, it is in New Delhi, and talking about the jurisdiction, it works under Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pension. Now, the very important fact that you have to remember about this CBI is that it is not a statutory body. So it was actually created using a resolution passed by this particular ministry, and it derives all the framework to be functioning from the Delhi Special Polices Establishment Act 1946. So we can tell that it is a hierarchical organization. It has a director. This director is actually appointed by a committee which consists of a prime minister, leader of opposition, and a CJI. And this director is usually a IPS officer, and there are also additional directors, joint directors, and they will be appointing on the deputation basis. And there is a Deputy Inspector General, DIG, and Superintendent of Police, SP, and there is investigation officers like sub-inspectors and inspectors. So these support staffs are selected through staff selection commission. Apart from this, there are members to support from the forensic science and any kind of special subject experts. So they have different divisions. For example, they have anti-corruption division, they have economic offences division, they have special crimes division, as well as the administration and training department. Now talking about the jurisdiction of CBI, they take cases or offences against the central government employees, and they have inherent jurisdiction over any kind of PSUs, any kind of autonomous body under that functions under our central government, and they usually undergo investigation which includes bribery and corruption, misconduct in official duties, and financial irregularities. When we talk about jurisdiction of CBI, you have to remember about a general consent. This general consent is given by states. So based on this Delhi Special Polices Establishment Act, CBI has to get the permission priorly from the state to undergo any kind of investigation within the state. And these states also have the power to withdraw the general consent after a period of time. But when it comes to union territories, they are already under the administration of central government. So CBI would not require any kind of state's permission to undergo investigation when it comes to union territories. And again, remember, when a court, any kind of court, if they ask the CBI to undergo investigation in a particular state, then getting the general consent from the state is not required for CBI. So remember this, it is a very important fact that you have to remember when it comes to CBI. Now moving on, Let us quickly go through the difference between CBI and ED, that is the Enforcement Directorate. When, as I said earlier, CBI is actually a crime investigation agency that dwells into investigation when it comes to corruption and crimes. But when we talk about Enforcement Directorate, it is actually a financial investigation agency that focuses a lot on money laundering, foreign exchange violations, and etc. And key laws that includes when it comes to CBI is that the Indian Penal Code (IPC), Code of Criminal Procedure (CRPC), and the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act (DSPE) Act. And the key law when it comes to ED is that the Prevention of Money Laundering Act (PMLA) and the Foreign Exchanges Management Act (FAMA). Now, the parent ministry for CBI is Ministry of Personal Public Grievances, and that is Ministry of Finance for ED. And talking about the scope, they have wide range. They can even undertake economic crimes as well. But when it comes to ED, they can take care of only the financial offences. So it is like a specialized agency. So this is the very important difference between CBI and Enforcement Directorate. Now moving on, let us try to solve this particular question from the insights that we got from the article discussion. Here three statements are given. First statement says the CBI operates under the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act 1946. So the statement is correct. Now the second statement says CBI derives its power from the PMLA and FEMA. No. And third statement says it is formed based on the recommendation of Santanam Committee on Prevention of Corruption. So here the correct answer for the particular question is option B, 2 only. So with these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Now look at this article about UAPA. Recently, Delhi High Court has asked a particular question: is setting up protest site enough to attract UAPA? So UAPA can be expanded as Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. So let's start with what is this unlawful activities and then revise about the features of this UAPA Act. So what is this unlawful activities? According to section 2 clause 1O of UAPA, any action that aim to cession of Indian territory, or any action that challenges India's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and any action that causes disaffection against India. These kinds of action is only is termed as the unlawful activities. And there are certain other inclusions. For example, any action or speech that that is prohibited by the Constitution or Indian law, and there are any inciting acts against India's sovereignty, unity, or integrity. So all these are termed as the unlawful activities. So when we talk about the UAPA Act, it was enacted in 1967 to prevent all the unlawful activities that we saw just now, and the associated threats that causes a concern for India's sovereignty and integrity. Talking about the three provisions, we have section 15 that is identified as a terrorist act. It defines terrorist acts with intent to threaten India's unity, integrity, security, and sovereignty. And we have section 18 that prescribes punishment for conspiracy. It punishes for attempts, advocacy, abetment, or incitement of any kind of terrorist acts. So when we talk about UAPA, there is also another concern, which is the right to protest. We have right to protest under Article 19. So it is a fundamental right, meaning we have constitutional guarantee for right to protest. We have freedom of speech and expression, we have freedom of assembly, and we have freedom of association. But it comes with a reasonable restriction. For example, if it hinders the sovereignty and integrity of India, or if it threatens the security of Indian states, or it affects the public order, or it is not decent or not moral, or it is a contempt of court, or it is being defamative in nature, or it is being incitement to any kind of offense. So those kinds of actions are clearly prohibited even when we have the right to protest. So now coming to the question of our Delhi High Court, it has asked whether setting up of a protest site will attract UAPA or not. Here we can interpret the intent of a particular action through four important key terms. The first thing is the proven intent. What is the intention of that particular action? The prosecution must demonstrate clear intent to threaten India's sovereignty or security. So any kind of action that should have the clear intent of hurting the sovereignty or security of our country. This is the proven intent, the first criteria. Secondly, the active participation, not just merely participating, but the active participation. So it requires evidence of direct involvement in unlawful activities. Thirdly, there is a strict interpretation. This is done by the court in order to safeguard the misuse of the act against a particular individual. And the fourth important thing is this proportionality. Judiciary actually scrutinize the act's application in proportion. So based upon the case, the judiciary will be scrutinizing whether the act has been properly applied to the particular case or not. So these are the very important ways or the implications through which the intent of that particular action is actually derived. So here this particular case is very important. Arup Buyan versus State of Assam. In this particular judgment, the court has said mere participation in a banned organization without active intent is not punishable. So whenever you see a question about UAPA, you can quote this particular judgment. So far we saw about UAPA, some of the provisions of it. Then we saw about what is unlawful activities, what is the interpretation of this intent. So with this, let us try to solve this particular question. This question has three statements. First statement says the term unlawful activities under UAPA includes any action that questions or disrupts the sovereignty and territorial integrity of India. Second statement says the UAPA allows for the detention of individuals without filing a charge sheet for a maximum of 90 days. The third statement says mere membership is in a banned organization is sufficient to convict an individual under the UAPA. So the correct answer for the question is option A, 1 and 2 only. The third statement is incorrect. So with this, we came to the end of the news article discussion. If you like the video, hit like, do comment, and don't forget to subscribe to Shankar IAS Academy YouTube channel. Now, thank you so much and have a happy Pongal.